Well, hello there. The difference between realistic looking grapes and amateurish ones is not talent, is in knowing what to look for. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to get the beautiful transparent glow that makes grapes look alive and avoid the mistakes that beginners make that makes them look flat. So grab your brushes and let's paint some grapes. So for this second part of this painting, I added one more color, which is Realism Crimson, and it's right here. And then I made this red orange by adding a little bit of the cadmium yellow light to this Realism Crimson, and I made this yellow deep by adding a tiny bit of Realism Crimson to this cadmium yellow light. All right, these two colors are new. And I made the purple by adding ultramarine blue to Realism Crimson, mainly more blue than Realism Crimson. Okay, this is the green that I made by adding a little bit of the cadmium yellow light to the ultramarine blue. And these are the rest of the colors that we had before, and these are the mixtures left over from when I painted the background, which I presume they will be helpful. I am in Photoshop right now, and I want to show you how I transform this photo that we're going to paint into the one in the left. And what I did is I posterize it. I click on filter, and then adjustments, and then posterize right here. And see, when you do that, then it tells you the levels that you want it to be. So you can change 4, you can give it 10, you can give as many as you want. So I gave it level 9. What it does is separates all of the colors really nice, and it shows you the warm and the cool next to each other. And see this green right here? It doesn't even show up in here. But if you paint it like this, then your painting will be a lot more interesting. I'm starting making the colors for this painting. So because I made most of the colors myself in between, like the orange, and I made the red too, and the green, it will be far easier for me to keep the painting harmonious. So I'm speeding up this process because it will take forever and I don't want the video to be too long. But I'm showing you how I'm using what I call the holly, which is those white strips with the holes in it, to show you how I'm checking for all of the colors that I see. Now you may think, well, this is gonna take forever, how that would be very boring, but it really isn't, because if you look at those grapes, all the same values are repeated throughout. So basically you're gonna be looking at about 9 different colors that would be repeated. So once you make it from one grape, most of the grapes have the same colors and similar value range, except for the ones in the shadow. So you just have to be patient at the beginning, but later on it will be far easier for you to do it and take as many breaks as you want. Now I'm making the background colors, because remember I told you on the first video that I posted last week when we did the background for this painting that I was most certainly gonna go back to the background around the grapes. And look how beautiful the mixtures that I'm making. So here they are, all the mixtures that I made of the grapes and the 3 mixtures of the background that I made around the grapes. I'm grabbing a small soft filbert brush and I start painting from the top. Today I decided to try painting on a table. Therefore I can't use my cane and I have to rest my hand on the painting itself. So it must be dry. You can see how I used my holly. I know I gave it a funny name. To find the color for the top of the grape. The beginning is always slow because at this stage you still organizing your thoughts, and how you began the painting will determine how you end it. At this stage, I don't look at the real photo to the right, only at the posterized one to the left. Notice how I began painting the mid-tone of the grapes, like in the photo I'm showing. This way I'll have an easier time to find the shadow tones and the highlights. So what will be the mistake that beginners will most likely make here? Using too much white and making the yellow-green color too bright and too light, so the grape will not have a good range of values. Even though I like to stay with the same grape, I notice my attention wanes, so I move around to the other grapes to keep my vision alert. I continue using the Holy to find all values, while also taking into consideration the chroma and the color. The color is the actual color, in this case yellow-green, and the chroma is the level of intensity of this color. The value is just the degree of lightness or darkness of a color. I paint the darkest value I see now inside the grape, which typically is where the seeds are. Notice that I don't blend anything at this stage. I like to let the painting rest there for a while first, so it's not too soft when I'm trying to blend, and therefore avoid rubbing colors together and ending up with matte. This is definitely the most tedious stage, for an almost infinite amount of patience is required. I'm using a very small filbert brush and trying not to think too hard of how many more grapes I have to paint. The next part is pretty repetitive, so I'm gonna speed it up. I'm focusing on this grape and apply all the tools I see where I see them with a very small brush. My biggest tool right now is patience. I take as many breaks as I can. My thoughts at this moment are, if I can get the first grape right, then there's hope for the rest of the painting. I paint the reflected light underneath the grape and place a little more blue in the background to see the contrast. I don't like very dark backgrounds because I find them unnatural, so I am consciously lighting this one to resemble more how we will see the grapes under natural light conditions. I paint the stems with the darkest mixtures, and I apply the second lightest light mixture to the top of the grapes, adding a little green blue to contrast nicely with the orange yellow of the grapes. One of the biggest mistakes beginners make when painting grapes is treating them like solid objects. But grapes aren't completely opaque, they are translucent. That means that light doesn't just bounce off the surface. It also passes through the fruit, creating a beautiful glow, especially around the edges where the light is strongest. To create that effect, you have to think beyond the grape's local color. Look for those warm, luminous areas where the light filters through, and balance them with rich, transparent shadows. Finish them with a few carefully placed highlights. When you paint both the light on the surface and the light shining through the grapes, it suddenly comes to light and looks fresh, juicy, and incredibly realistic. Notice that all the mixtures that I have are pretty light. I don't, even for the darkest areas, I didn't make a very, very dark color, because that way I create better the illusion of translucent, because like I said, the grape is not opaque, and when I mix the warm and the cool colors throughout and apply the highlight on top of it, then the illusion is achieved. And one thing that you have to have in mind is Pay very close attention to the highlights and don't make them all the same. That's another mistake that amateur painters or beginner painters make, that they make all of the grapes the same, resemble them balls, and place the highlight with the exact same shape, and the grapes the exact same shape as well. And that creates monotony and makes the painting very boring. So don't do that, and pay very close attention to what you see. So think about it this way. Some light reflects off the grape skin, and this creates the bright highlight. And some light enters the grape, and some light enters the grape. It scatters inside the flesh. Some of the light exits on the opposite side and around the edges, and this creates the translucent glow. The thicker the grape, the less light gets through, so the center usually appears darker than the glowing rim. Think about painting two kinds of light: the light on the grape and then the light inside the grape. I'm checking for values right now with my red filter, and I'm pretty much on the money. I'm very happy, so I continue. And I can't overemphasize enough for you to do that, to keep on checking the values. Like I said previously, values are the lightness or darkness of every color, and they are what give a painting its sense of form, depth, and realism. They tell the viewer where the light is coming from, separate one object from another, and create the illusion of three-dimensional space on a flat canvas. Think of values as the skeleton of a painting. Colors add beauty and personality, but values do the heavy lifting. When your values are accurate, objects appear solid, light looks believable, and your painting has impact. That's why many artists say, get the values right first, and the colors will take care of themselves. And the grapes ultimately are spheres. The part of the grape that is closest to the light and protrudes the most, that's exactly what the brightest highlight is going to be. I'm adding a little bit of purple to the side of that grape to make it stand out, and then reaching the end of this painting and just painting the values I see on the bottom grapes and around the highlights. Notice how all the highlights I have are different. The reflected light and the light on top of the grapes. I'm using a very, very small brush right now, and I think it's a round, small brush. I saved the finest round brush that I had for placing the highlights. I'm having a close-up to this grape right now, so you can see how all the different tones are there. They're going to look, of course, a little bit different than the photo because it is a painting, it's not a photo, and it's catching the light differently. And also remember, I told you that I'm making the background a little bit lighter than the one in the photo, which definitely alters how the grapes are perceived. I'm adding some purple to the background around it, just like you can see it in the photo, and a little bit of blue around that orange grape, because blue is the complementary of orange, so it will make it stand out. Now is the final stage, and I grabbed my small comb brush and I'm very carefully blending all the tones that I see. You can see how I'm doing. I'm slowing down right now so you can see how I'm moving the highlight a little bit into the surroundings to very careful blend the tones. I don't rough the tones one into another. I just gently move the edges so the transitions are soft. I can't emphasize that enough. If you rub one color into the other, then that color turns into matte and it will disappear. So you just very ever so gently want to move it around. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. It's completely free. See you next week. And here it is, the finished painting.